Hey guys, Miss Bianchi. Chapter 9, Section 2 today. So we're going to solve quadratic equations by taking the square root. And our learning target is exactly that. So I can solve quadratic equations by taking the square root. All right, so we're going to learn how to solve when it's ax squared plus c equals 0, so there won't be a middle term, no b term. So to do this, we take the square root of each side of the equation. X squared is equal to a number. In this case, it's d. So if this number, if d is bigger than 0, we're going to have two real solutions. If d is 0, we're just going to have one. And then if d is smaller than 0, it is going to be none or no solutions. Okay? All right. Feel free to pause that if you need more time. I have y is equal to x squared minus 16. Because I want x squared equal to a number, I'm going to make this 0 is equal to x squared minus 16. So replacing the y with 0 because I need x squared equal to a number. Now I need to add 16 to both sides because I need to get x squared all by itself. So I have 16 is equal to x squared. So now my very next step is I need to square root this side because I only want one x. And then I have to do it to the other side too, because what you do to the one side, you do to the other to keep it equal. Now, the square root of 16 is 4. But because 16 is bigger than 0, it's really plus or minus 4 because we get to have two solutions here. Okay, because negative 4 times negative 4 is still positive 16. So that's why we have two solutions there. So x is equal to plus or minus 4. All right, number 2, I have y is equal to 4x squared minus 16. Again, I'm going to replace y with 0. So I have 0 is equal to 4x squared minus 16. And now I want to get x squared all by itself. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So I get 16 is equal to 4x squared. Now I just want x squared, so I have to divide both sides by 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. And then I'm left with x squared. And now I need to take the square root of both sides because I just want one x. So square root each side. The square root of 4 is plus or minus 2. And the square root of x squared is x. So again, the number that x squared was equal to is bigger than 0. So that's why I have two real solutions. Negative 2 times negative 2 is still 4. All right, number 3, I have x squared minus 10 equals negative 10. And I need to get x squared all by itself. So I'm going to add 10 to both sides. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. And if you were to take the square root of both sides, you would just get x is equal to 0, which makes sense because if d is equal to 0, that number, you have one real solution. Number 4, I have negative 5x squared plus 11 equals 16. I need to get x by itself, so I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. I get negative 5x squared is equal to 5. And I need to get x squared by itself still, so I have to divide both sides by negative 5. 5 divided by negative 5 is negative 1. But I cannot take the square root of a negative number. I'm actually going to end up getting an imaginary number, which we haven't got into yet, but we will. So this is just no solution. So we cannot take a square root of a negative number. So because it's less than 0, it's no solution. Y is equal to x minus 2 squared minus 10, the quantity x minus 2. I'm going to replace y with 0 again. And then I got to get x by itself, so I'm going to add 10 to both sides. 10 is equal to x minus 2 squared. And because this guy is squared here, I can take the square root of both sides. Now, this might get a little tricky. So on this side of the equation, that square root will cancel out that square. So this is going to be x minus 2. But when I take the square root of 10, you can't, right? So it's just going to be the square root of 10. But it's going to be plus or minus the square root of 10. Okay, now I still need to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I get 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. 2 plus or minus square root of 10 equals x. And then I can write this as 2 plus the square root of 10 equals x, and then 2 minus the square root of 10 equals x. That's what the plus or minus means. Okay, so I still have 2 solutions. All right, y is equal to 3 times the quantity x minus 2 squared minus 5. I'm going to set this equal to 0, but I'm actually going to put the 0 on the right-hand side this time, just because that's what I prefer doing. And my very first step is going to be to add 5 to both sides. So I have 3 times x minus 2 squared equal to 5. Now I still need x by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3 now. Okay. So I get x minus 2 squared is equal to 5/3. And I want this square to go away, so I'm going to square root both sides. So I get x minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5/3. And just like what I did in the last problem, I need to get rid of that 2. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I get x is equal to 2 plus or minus the square root of 5/3. And I can make that x is equal to 2 plus the square root of 5/3. And x is equal to 2 minus the square root of 5/3. So you can write it like this, but this shows that you know what the 2 separate solutions are. All right, the quantity x minus 1 squared equals 25. Now right away, I don't have any extra steps, so I'm going to square root both sides to get rid of that square. So I have x minus 1 is equal. Now the square root of 25 is plus or minus 5. So I'm going to set x minus 1 equal to positive 5 and x minus 1 equal to negative 5. So this side stays the same and only your 5 changes. So only that sign changes. You get x is equal to 6 after you add 1. And you get x is equal to negative 4. So those are your 2 answers. And our very last problem today, I have 4 times the quantity x minus 3 squared is equal to 9. And I'm going to divide both sides by 4 to get x by itself. That'll cancel. So I'm left with x minus 3 squared equals 9/4. I need to get rid of that square, so I'm going to square root both sides. I get x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9 over 4. Now, the square root of 9 over 4 is really going to be 3 over 2. Okay, because the square root of 9 is 3, and the square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so now I need to set x plus 3, or I'm sorry, I need to set x minus 3 equal to positive 3 halves, and x minus 3 equal to negative 3 halves. In the first one, you add 3. And if you use your calculator, you're totally allowed to do that here. You're going to get x is equal to 9 halves. 3 plus 3 halves gives you 9 halves. And then the second one, add 3 to both sides, and you get x is equal to 3 halves. Okay? If you have any questions, I'll kind of zoom in on each side so you can pause it. Feel free to ask me any questions, okay? I'll circle all the answers for you again. Okay. See you guys soon. Bye.